Do you know the most fabulous gluten-free desserts can likely be made with what you already have in your pantry? On today's show, we're baking 3 enticing recipes with ingredients that just happen to be naturally gluten-free. Lemon-Cornmeal cake, spiced pumpkin pie with a crisp rice crust, and Flourless Chocolate-Walnut Tort. All today on Martha Bakes. Curtis Cord is founder of a famous olive oil publication, and he's joining us today to showcase olive oils in all their glory. So Curtis, what did you bring with you today? I have so many questions.
Happy to be here. Well, there are great extra virgin olive oils made throughout the world. More than 27 countries, in fact,
are making olive oil.
That's right. This is a variety. We have a Spanish picual.
That's a Spanish one.
Which is going to be very nice and spicy. A Greek koroneki, also a peppery olive oil. This one is from a small island in Croatia, and it's made from an olive called the Sultanska. And this is a blend from Uruguay, and then this is a delicate blend from California.
So no Italy. Didn't olive oil start in Italy?
Well, actually, Spain produces half of our world's olive oil.
Right, but originally, wasn't it Italian?
It was started in what is current day Lebanon and Israel.
Oh, okay.
In Italy, they have more cultivars than any other country, so they have more olive varieties there than in other places.
Do you choose by price? Do you choose by name? How do you choose?
Pretty packaging?
Right.
No, it's difficult. There are things that you can look for on the label that will improve your chances of getting a high quality olive oil, but in the end, it's really tasting it.
Right.
And color should never be taken into account when you're judging the quality of an olive oil. So for that reason, professional tasters use a cobalt blue glass so that you can't see the color of the oil inside, and therefore it cannot impact.
I'm going to try the Croatia.
Martha, cover it with one hand like this and warm the glass with your other hand.
Oh, and make sure that your hand is clean.
Right.
Doesn't have any hand cream on your palms.
And now smell it like this.
It smells good.
Fruity. If it doesn't smell like fresh olives, you're getting cheated.
Don't buy it.
Correct.
Okay. I've never sipped olive oil before.
And just circulate it around your mouth. And then you feel that peppery spiciness in the back of your throat.
I think that's a pleasant olive oil. What's a good contrast to that one?
A good contrast would be this delicate blend from the United States. And you'll notice right away, it still is really nice, but it's not going to be quite as fruity and not quite as spicy in the mouth.
So at home, you can actually buy several olive oils and have a little tasting, right?
And you certainly should.
And educate not only yourself, but your friends.
Exactly.
This hardly has any scent compared to the other. This tastes more like what we're used to.
This is the kind that I would use in mashed potatoes, for example, instead of butter, and it would also be very nice for baked items.
How many olives does it take to make a quart of olive oil?
Have you ever seen an olive harvest?
I have.
It is not easy work getting olives off a tree.
Right.
They have to rake them off. They have to pull them from a stubborn hole.
And they usually put cloths underneath the tree to catch them.
Exactly. It's painstaking work. And
but they're green or black when they're picked?
All olives turn from green to black. Greener olives retain more of their health benefits. But it can take 50 pounds of olives to make 1 liter of olive oil.
Really?
50 pounds. So this is about a liter. I would say these 3 are about a liter. So 50 pounds of olives.
Wow.
Just to make this much.
And are there enough olives in the world to satisfy our craving for olive oil?
Right now, the world produces about 3 million tons of olive oil, which is about what the world consumes.
3 million?
3 million tons.
So what are the health properties of olive oil?
High quality extra virgin olive oils like the ones we have here pack a huge number of antioxidants, polyphenols, that help us fight things like inflammation and other ailments.
So I should be drinking a cup of this a day so I don't have aches and pains?
At least a couple of tablespoons.
A couple of tablespoons. How would you suggest people realize when their olive oil has gone bad, rancid?
Well, when you smell a an oil that you get at the store and it doesn't remind you of fresh olives, that's a bad sign. Once olive oil is bottled, it has a 2-year shelf life.
Oh, it does? Oh, if it's not kept in the sun or in the heat.
Exactly correct.
And always store it in a dark, cool place, right, in your house.
That's right.
So in terms of baking with butter versus olive oil, why choose olive oil?
To replace those saturated fats with a healthier fat. Also, sometimes olive fruity flavor is very nice with certain baked creation.
Well, thank you. Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Finely ground cornmeal is what gives this delicious lemon cornmeal cake its texture. I wanted to start the recipe by just showing you what mise en place is. It means put in place. We have everything that we need here and here. So you see how organized a baking process can be. Won't be that organized in your house because this is for television, but you have to know that you have all the ingredients for a recipe within easy reach before you start. So now for the recipe. This is based on an Italian-style cornmeal torte, and it's enriched with the ground almonds and made more flavorful with extra virgin olive oil in place of butter. And best of all, this is naturally gluten-free. So start with your milk, half a cup of whole milk, and we're going to acidulate the milk. We're going to make it almost like a buttermilk by adding the juice of 1 lemon. And you can just squeeze the lemon, which, by the way, has already been zested because we need the zest of the lemon also for the cake. So just squeeze all the juice out of the lemon. And this is such a great tool to have in your kitchen, this lemon squeezer. There. Now, you'll see right now it's still just kind of lemony milk, but this will thicken up and you'll see what happens. It turns like it curdles like a buttermilk. And we need 3/4 cup of olive oil, and I will measure this out. Good quality olive oil. And in our food processor, 1.5 cups of already ground almonds. They're not fine enough though. And 1 cup of sugar. Grind this until it's a very fine meal. And these are raw almonds. We're basically making a nice sugary flour of almonds. And to this, now add your lemon zest. Pulsing the almonds and the sugar with the lemon zest allows the lemon to be completely incorporated into the flour of the cake. Flour in quotes. Because we're used to thinking about flour as all-purpose white flour, of course. So now you can dump this into a large bowl. It's very fragrant and very delicious. So to the almond flour, now add your cornmeal, 1 cup of fresh Italian ground corn. This is made from dried corn kernels. Look how beautifully yellow it is. And don't use coarse grits. That would not be appropriate for this cake. It has to be a nice fine grind of corn. And to this we add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So there's our dried ingredients, well mixed, gluten-free. And now we can add to our milk, and look how it's curdled. Can you see? It's really thick. A nice light buttermilk. Add 1 teaspoon of almond extract. And 3 large eggs. You can beat these in after each addition. Almond extract is made by combining almond oil from bitter almonds with ethyl alcohol. So it's very, very strong, and 1 teaspoon is plenty. Sometimes people use too much of the extracts and really overpowers the flavor of the other ingredients. So be careful. I have made that mistake. And now add your olive oil to the egg mixture. Look at that gorgeous color. You should have your pan, which is a 9-inch spring-form pan, oiled generously with olive oil. And this has an easy release. You see this little clamp on the side, so that when the cake is done, you just separate this ring and the cake will pop out. So now you can add the wet ingredients. And you can sort of feel the crunch of the cornmeal. If you want the most nutritious and flavorful cornmeal, make sure the package says whole grain or stone ground. This means that the germ and the bran layer are included in the mix. And your oven should be preheated to 325 degrees. And you're going to bake this cake for anywhere from 50 to 55 minutes. So just pour this right into your pan, and it's ready to go into the oven. Set your timer. So here's the cake. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. Let it cool completely on a wire rack like this in the pan, and run a knife around the perimeter so that you're sure it's going to release. Now here is the little clamp that springform pans have. This releases the ring. Did you notice it got bigger? And this will lift right off. How good. So use a large spatula if you have one, just to lift the cake and put in place. You could use a stencil if you want to put a decoration on there, but it's also very pretty, just powdered sugar in a sieve all over the top. So pretty. And this is ready to serve. What a nice crumb this cake has. It's moist, bursting with the flavor of lemon. Enjoy. Our test kitchen was really excited with the outcome of this recipe for gluten-free spiced pumpkin pie with a crisp rice crust. It all began with the creative use of a crunchy rice cereal combined with a mixture of butter, brown sugar, and almonds. And that crust is just pressed into a pie plate, and it looks just like a crumb crust. So it's very easy to make. 3 cups of gluten-free rice cereal, and it says it right on the box, gluten-free. 1/4 cup plus a tablespoon of light brown sugar. 1/2 cup of almonds. They can be raw almonds that are sliced or whole. Either will work. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And butter, 5 tablespoons of butter, which I'll add. I'm going to grind this up a little bit first. When you're grinding almonds or any kind of nuts, make sure that your blade of your food processor is sharp. And now add your butter, 5 tablespoons of melted butter. So that looks good. And now this can be just dumped right into, I like using glass because I can see if the bottom of the crust is well made, well baked, I should say. And this is a 9-inch glass pie plate. And spread this into an even layer, a little thicker on the outside than in the center. And you can use the back of your hand, your fingers if you'd like. That's how we always used to do it until we found out that pressing with a little metal cup measure works very well and quickly. This can just press your crust into a nice even layer. Look how nice, this works so well. And preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Try to make the sides all equal thickness, and just pop this into your oven and make the filling. Takes about 12 minutes. And now for the pumpkin filling, the spicy pumpkin filling, 1.5 cups of pumpkin puree. This can be homemade. Of course, it can also be canned. Pumpkin is one of the nicest foods that you can get out of a can. 3 eggs, and whisk the eggs into the pumpkin. It's a custardy filling, very similar to a traditional pumpkin pie. You can also use any number of squashes for this pie too. Instead of pumpkin, you could use the wonderful butternut squash, acorn squash, kabocha squash. They all make very nice pie fillings. And 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, some cornstarch, about a tablespoon will do, just in case your squash is a little wet, a pinch of cloves, and some cinnamon, 1 teaspoon. Also, my favorite, nutmeg. Just about 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So stir this up. Brown sugar gets lumpy and dry really fast, which is why we keep it in a sealed container. And it'll be very hard to break up if it gets too dry. So you can just add this right to your pumpkin. And now add 1 cup of milk, whole milk. Some people might use cream, but the milk works very nicely. Make sure that your oven is set to 325 degrees. But you can see it's nice and silky smooth. Get this right into your pie crust. This rice crust, which is gluten-free, can be used with a filling of cream, of chiffon or custard. Chocolate is very good. You can experiment, but it's a very nice crust to have on hand when you want to make a delicious pie. There, get that right into your oven. It's going to take about 50 to 55 minutes. So for the topping for this delicious pumpkin pie, we're not done. Yogurt, 3 cups of yogurt, a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, and 3 tablespoons of honey. And this you just dollop right on top. Use a nice thick yogurt, like a Greek style. So just spoon this right on top. You want to just cover the whole pie with your yogurt. Looks so beautiful. And you can just put this back into the fridge to chill a little bit until you're ready to serve. And there you have a spicy, gluten-free pumpkin pie. You can experiment with all sorts of fillings for this unique crust, but this one just might turn out to be your favorite. Enjoy. If you follow a gluten-free diet and crave decadent chocolate desserts, look no further than this flourless chocolate-walnut tort. It's a rich cake that calls for walnuts to be used instead of flour and replaces butter with coconut oil for richness. So the first step is to melt the chocolate. 8 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. I just melted in a bowl over simmering water. A little bit of a double boiler creation here. And you melt the chocolate with your shortening, which is really, instead of butter, a 1/2 cup of coconut oil. Coconut oil looks like lard or vegetable shortening. It's solid in form. It's often used as a butter substitute in vegan and dairy-free baking. It's unrefined. It imparts a sweet, fragrant flavor to baked goods made with chocolate. And look for it sold in jars, and be sure it says virgin. Very important. Or if it doesn't say virgin, it should say unrefined on the label. Let that just soften and melt together. In the food processor, take a 1/2 cup of walnut meat and grind them until they are quite fine, almost like a flour. And I'm using what's known to all nut aficionados as English walnuts. They originally came from Persia. It has that hard, thick shell, actually 2 shells, sort of clamped together. And this looks very nice, quite fine. And prepare your pan. The pan should be brushed with coconut oil also. This is an 8-inch by 2-inch cake pan. Now, I've cut a piece of parchment that will fit nicely right into the bottom. You can do your own parchment liners. You can also buy them in some cake decorating stores. Now, because we want the cake to look dark on the sides, on the top, on the bottom, the secret, instead of using flour for release, use cocoa. And just sift some cocoa into the pan and then sort of bang it around. It's going to stick all over the coconut oil. And I have a piece of parchment on my counter to collect the excess cocoa. There, that's beautiful. But do shake out the excess. And there, look how nice your pan looks. Here we have our walnuts ground. How is our chocolate doing? It's melted. We can take it off the heat. Just remove it from the steaming water. And now you can add your sugar, 1 1/4 cups of granulated sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla. Stir in your walnuts and Dutch processed cocoa, 1/4 cup. And now you can add your eggs one by one. You have to make sure that the chocolate is cool enough so that it doesn't cook your eggs. So this looks so good, so shiny. And now pour your batter right into your prepared pan. Make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And just shake it around, get it level, right into the oven for 35 minutes. So here's your cake. It's best if you let this cool in the pan overnight. Run a knife around the perimeter like this, just to make sure that it will come out of the pan. And then you can turn it out onto your serving plate, and we can do that by inverting like this. Oh, I heard it plop. That's a good sign. And here's this beautiful cake. We're not going to ice the sides of the cake, just the top with a ganache. About 1/3 cup of semi-sweet chocolate melted with 1 teaspoon of coconut oil. Just let that melt together. And you can decorate with chopped walnuts or whole walnut halves if you have some. You want the glaze to be nice and smooth. And you can just put that right in the middle of your cake. Just a little bit of icing. Spread it just to cover almost the entire top. This will level out. You can sprinkle the chopped walnuts around the edge. This cake can be made with bittersweet chocolate or semi-sweet chocolate. Either chocolate will work very nicely. I just happen to like the semi-sweet. And if you want, you can put some walnut halves also on your cake. What a beautiful cake. Cut it into wedges and serve. You can keep this refrigerated, covered for up to a day. It's so rich and so tasty. You can hardly believe that it is gluten and dairy-free. Eaten right away, it's divine, but if you serve it chilled, it is even fudgier. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Martha Bakes.
I love the taste of fresh eggs with good extra virgin olive oil. I just add a touch at the beginning. In go the eggs. I don't like my eggs cooked too much. Drizzling extra virgin olive oil afterwards will keep those fruity olive flavors intact, and it'll elevate the taste of those fresh, delicious eggs. Give it a try.